Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome or welcome back, as the case might be. My name is Dalibor Petrovic. I'm a partner at Deloitte. Over the last number of years, I've had the pleasure of hosting this live webcast channel that we are using to bring to you conversations with technology leaders who are shaping the future of our country. We, of course, use the same channel to bring other thought leadership discussions around emerging enterprise tech trends, but the core of our program really is to bring to you Canadian technology executives, technology leaders, to hear their stories. And today is another one of those sessions. I am privileged and very excited to welcome Kanaris Paraskevopoulos, Executive Vice President, Chief Information Analytics Officer with SGI, Saskatchewan Government Insurance. Thank you very much, Kanaris, for finding the time to be with us this morning. I really appreciate you finding time. I know how busy you are. Thank you. Audience, it's an absolute pleasure. And for the audience members, you would know this is a live session, which means two things. First, if you have some technical difficulties, please pardon us for that. And the second, this, of course, will allow you to submit any questions you might have for Kanaris. So please, using the Q&A function of this Zoom platform that we are using, please feel free to submit questions, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can in our 45-minute block that we've reserved. So with that, I think we can just get going, Kanaris. I typically don't do introductions to my guests because I know I would do it disservice. Instead, I always prefer to ask my guests to come and tell us their stories, how you navigated your career and your life to now be at the helm, at the technology helm of SGI. So, Kanaris, over to you.
Thanks, Dalibor. Yeah, thanks for having me here. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. It's interesting. I'm a first generation Canadian, and one thing my parents always imparted to me was the value of working hard and a good education. Even though they themselves weren't educated, I got a lot of those values from my parents. I spent time growing up both here in Canada and some time overseas in Greece, and I got to get exposed to real interesting differences in culture and everything else. Coming out of school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to pursue as a career. I ended up in engineering, and I really started getting the bug for technology, and back in those days, it was like the early days of the internet and stuff like that, and things were kind of exciting, and I kind of jumped in. Coming out of school, I was real excited to get out there and make a difference, and I actually landed my first job here at SGI, where I started my career, and I came into work ready to change the world, and I spent my first day vacuuming out dust balls out of old desktop computers and moving those big old monitors around, and it was kind of funny because I remember I was still living at home, and I came home that day, and my parents were real excited that I was done school and I had my first real job, and I came home and they were asking me all about it, and it was a little bit embarrassing for me because I was literally just
covered in dust.
Yeah, I was lugging and toting all day. But it was the start of a great journey, and I spent over a decade at SGI, and I did a number of different roles, all in IT. but I got to a point in my career where, I saw the world of technology starting to evolve rapidly, and things weren't really changing here, and I wanted to kind of go and explore and do different things, and I didn't know what I didn't know, and so
Yeah.
I left, joined a really small company, private company, and went through this amazing journey with them, where we grew from a small company to a medium-sized company that had enterprise customers, and we did a lot of cutting-edge technology, which was really exciting, and not just the tech, but the ways of working and everything else. And it really gave me great perspective, kind of both sides of both public sector and private. And about 6 years ago, I had I heard that SGI was really looking to transform. There was a pretty big change in the leadership here, and I was really interested to come back. My heart was always here at SGI, and I was able to join and be part of this transformation. So that's kind of my and the last 6 years have been a whirlwind. I can talk a little bit more about that later, but we're doing lots of exciting things here. So that's kind of been my career journey. On a personal note, you guys can probably see I have two young daughters that they're twins, and they're turning 9 this month, and they keep me busy when I'm not busy with work. So
Oh, I can imagine. I know the feeling. Wonderful, wonderful. So Kanaris, I loved how you started by saying that your parents instilled in you early on the value of hard work and the value of education. I think that is very, very important. Obviously, you're now at the helm of SGI's technology analytics domain. Very, very successful career, of course. I was wondering, when you sort of reflect back on that journey, what do you feel were the sort of key either enablers or moments or attributes that allowed you to sort of spread your wings and progress to the degree that you did? Like, clearly there was an element of you choosing to step out of SGI to gain experience externally, and then you came back. I wonder if you can reflect sort of what were those, maybe key attributes you see, or key milestones, key moments that sort of propelled you to where you're at now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I left SGI because I wanted to kind of, like you say, spread my wings and really kind of explore different avenues. And when I got out there, it was interesting because I think the company that hired me, I think I was attractive to them for all the things I was trying to move away from. They were looking for a little bit more, a little bit more of that kind of governance lens and
Yeah.
risk management and everything else. But when I joined there, it was exciting. And then probably 6 months in, I got a new boss there. We hired a new CTO, and I would say this guy, he was a really experienced guy, had built and sold his company, real tech pioneer, and he challenged me in a lot of ways, and he made me see how constrained my thinking really was, and he made me really uncomfortable, and it was interesting because he only stayed in his role for less than a year, but and that whole time was stressful for me and uncomfortable, um, because he was pushing me hard, pushing me outside of my boundaries, and really helping me see that, the tech world at the time, was transitioning, and it was no longer kind of the big companies that we all had known at that time that were driving innovation, but it was the Facebooks and the Netflix and everyone else of the world not only developing the next generation of tech, but the next generation of ways of working and ways of assessing risk and whatnot. And it was really huge change. I got what I asked for by going and pursuing that, but when it hit
Yeah.
me, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks, and it was hard. There were many days where I was kind of regretting my decision, but I look back on that time now really fondly, and I certainly encourage others to try different things and try to step outside of their comfort zone.
That is actually, I think, very, very powerful and important advice. I think people oftentimes hesitate because they worry, am I making a mistake? What is the risk? What am I going to lose? But I've been interviewing technology executives in Canada for years now, and I've had many, many stories. And actually, there are 2 or 3 common threads that I recognize in your story. And that is, first of all, there is value of hard work and education. That's consistent. But the second thing that is consistent is go out there and try new things. Open up horizons, and don't like that actually pays back significant dividends later on. That's one very important thing. And the third thing that I wanted to mention is you mentioned a person, like mentor, coach, guide, somebody who actually stretched you, who pushed you. And I can see that, like many people that I've had tell their stories have a version of someone like that, like a scaffolding around them, somebody who really stretched them, who really mentored them, who really coached them. And I think that we are all athletes in our professions, right? You would not dream of having a world-class sports person who doesn't have a coach, right? So I think that we should be all thinking about it from that sense as well. Thank you for the story, Kanaris. Very, very wonderful to hear. Congratulations. What a great accomplishment. So you mentioned you've been with CGI now for 6 years in your current sort of tenure, and that you guys are working on some very cool things. I would love if you could sort of share with us perhaps what might be some of those ambitions. What are those key things that you are after? What are the strategies you are deploying? Also, if there are some challenges, I would love for you to share how you're sort of tackling and dealing with certain challenges.
Yeah, it's been an exciting time here over the last 6 years. We've had lots of starts and stops kind of on our journey, but we're really trying to transform our business, and with that there's obviously a huge IT component, but this isn't about IT. This isn't let's implement a bunch of technologies that will become tools in our toolbox, and then we'll figure out how to use them after the fact to drive value. This is really around redefining our business, changing the way that we're working. And really, from my perspective, it's really around trying to move towards kind of this continuous value delivery. We have a bit of a history here, I would say, of taking on really big initiatives and being really successful with them. But the way that we've operated has really been, I would describe as, do very little for, long stretches of time, and then let's do a huge initiative to kind of make that step change, and then kind of sit back again and then do it again. I don't think the world allows you to work that way anymore. I don't think you can wait so long between, changing and evolving your business. And not only that, these huge initiatives always come with more risk. And in my opinion, right, you're doing, a big chunk of work in a small amount of time. There's always a lot of eyes on you around, budget, timeline, scope, and all of those things are important. But you're putting yourself into that kind of triple constraint um position, and it's not ideal. And and honestly, we're kind of in that right now. But I keep saying, this could be the last, big transformation that the company goes through, because this time we're not just, swapping out a bunch of technology. We're really focused on changing the way that we're working, and we're really being mindful about, um, what we look like and how we operate, on the day after our program is done. And that's super important. And the other thing, that I think we're more focused on, than we've ever been before as an organization, is really around, the benefits that we're looking to achieve. I think, it goes without saying, and everybody on this call is probably feeling this, but the world has just become so complicated,
Yep.
and for every business. And I know lots of us are probably dealing with the same challenges. But whether it's inflation or supply chain issues, or impacts of climate change. There's the war on talent, which is
Yep.
a real constraint, I would say. There's all of these things, and some of them, we have very little control over. But as part of the work that we're doing, we're really trying to be hyper focused on, okay, what are the things that we can control? Where are the areas that we can become more efficient and grow? And how do we leverage those, and how do we hold ourselves accountable to keep driving forward, to make sure that we're realizing the benefits of the work that we're doing? And then you know as we continue to move forward in kind of this new mode of working, we always need to reevaluate, what is it that we're doing? What are we targeting? Is it still the right thing, or do we need to make a change? Do we need to pivot, and do that in a much faster way than we have before? I think, COVID is such a great example of something that, was I would say no one was really prepared for that.
Mhm.
But it showed us how quickly the world could change, and the needs of our customers and our partners, changed overnight almost in some cases. And we as organizations need to be ready for those changes.
I love what you said about moving away from mega projects that take years to realize and cost hundreds or dozens or millions of dollars. And I think that you're absolutely 100% spot on. We actually sense this trend of organizations moving away from these huge capital intensive projects into, we call it a core modernization workout, as in, just like a regular workout, it's a daily routine. And I love actually philosophically what you said. We hope this is the last time we do this massive transformation, because I'm going to assume you're going to set yourselves up in a way that all future changes can be iterative and continuous, right?
Yeah,
This
that's our hope. And I believe that, we can deliver more, we can deliver faster, we can deliver cheaper in doing it that way.
Yeah.
Less change impact on everyone too, right? Introducing small changes to whoever your stakeholders are doesn't require all the communication and the change management and training and frankly some of the heartburn, right? For it's hard when people's jobs get dramatically upended, and I think those are some of the benefits of working in that fashion. And so that's really what's setting apart, I think, the work that we're doing today here at SGI, and what as part of our transformation is really to set ourselves up to continually evolve, right? To not say this is the we're just going to set the next version of our operating model, and then 10 years from now we're going to do it again. Like, we don't think that makes sense anymore.
Kanaris, this is exceptionally thoughtful approach, actually. And as you're describing this philosophical, this is a different philosophy, right? From what many still are doing, right? So you're combining the fact that gradual, continuous workout and sort of will build the muscle, actually. It will build the muscle of resilience. It will introduce the concept of we are on a continuous journey. And quite frankly, what you said about the world is changing so fast, the velocity is so fast. It's almost like we cannot really, we cannot stand firm and shoot at the target. The target is moving.
Yeah.
So this is almost like a clay pigeon game. Like the target is moving, you need to be quick to be able to point and shoot, right? So this is actually a very, very thoughtful approach. And one thing that I did not think about until you mentioned it is that we all know change is where the project will fail or succeed. But if you are moving everybody into this continuous improvement, you're actually reducing the amount of change people are experiencing in these events.
Yeah.
And the change becomes just natural part of how we operate going forward, which I think also alleviates that pressure to a certain degree.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a strong believer in that, and it makes people uncomfortable. I'll tell you, like, I think to some degree, many of us are kind of wired to think like, well, I don't want to change. I don't want to have the change too frequently. But I still strongly believe that if you break that change up and deliver it incrementally, the impact is, orders of magnitude less.
I love it. I love it. It's excellent. We have a couple of questions from the audience. I wanted to sort of address a couple. So it says, do you mean that we will then fit small technical changes in the larger strategies and pivot when needed? Like almost like there is a framework that you have to keep achieving smaller targets, and then once those are consolidated into larger outcome, which then allows you to pivot quickly if needed. Is that kind of how you would summarize this?
Yeah, that's exactly how I'd summarize it. And to be a little bit, maybe to add some color to that, this is really around understanding what the business outcomes are. And then, everything you're doing should move you one step closer to achieving that business outcome. But one small step, right? The challenge, I think, in the past is sometimes we'd say, well, our outcome is to do X, and then we plan out every activity for the next 2 years on what we think, based on our assumptions, is going to deliver that outcome.
Yeah.
You do all this work, and then you get there, and in the end, you sometimes realize, oh shoot, we made a bunch of bad assumptions. We never actually, delivered on the outcome. We delivered on the project successfully, and it's like you can pat yourself on the back to say, oh great, we did everything we said we were going to do, but sometimes that's not right. And if you break it up, tactically, like the person who asked the question said, into small pieces. You're building and delivering, you're testing, you're learning, you're getting that feedback. And meanwhile, the world's changing too, right? Around you. And your next step might be a little bit different than what you had envisioned in the outset. And we're certainly, I don't want to lead anyone astray. Like we're certainly not there yet, and this isn't an easy transition,
Absolutely not.
but that's where we're shooting for.
But I can attest, this is like a forefront thinking. Like what you're describing is if we're sensing leading organizations globally, actually trying to achieve what you are talking about as well. So this is very, 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 very good. Thank you. I'm very keen to hear like on this path, like our existence is intricately linked to the value we create for the business. So for this to work on our side, I'm going to assume business needs to play along. We have to have a handshake. Two hands need to be playing for the handshake. I wonder, like, what are the key challenges that are emerging that you can feel or sense as you are approaching your project this way, in this resilient, agile, continuous moving way?
I think there are lots of challenges. I think, I'll share some of the ones that we have here. Yeah. To some degree, we've trained people in our business to this model kind of where, anytime a big program comes around or some kind of IT implementation, that they need to make sure that they get every single feature and function that they could ever dream of, get it now, or they'll never get time and space from the IT or budget or whatever it is from IT again. And so it creates this kind of dynamic that kind of works against what we're actually trying to achieve, because the hypothesis is, well, you couldn't actually define everything that you need up front, that you're going to need for the next decade, and you need to actually kind of lean in and trust the process and really focus on delivering some value, and then iterating on top of that value and changing. So I mean that's one big challenge, and that's that's something that I always say that it's hard to convince people that it's going to be that way, because they haven't seen it happen, and to some degree I think you need to help people along as far as you can until you get into a position where you can actually prove it to them and get some of that buy-in by showing them, and it's hard, right? Especially when you're getting started. I mean, that's a big challenge. I think another challenge that I'll share is a lot of the IT vendors out there, don't necessarily want to work in this fashion. A lot of them will say, like, yeah, we want to, work in agile, follow agile methodologies and everything else. But they're talking about big A agile, and I'm trying to talk about small A agile. I like, a lot of the vendors out there want to ensure that they can win the whole piece of business, and in order to do that, they need it all, scoped, all up front, and it creates a bit of a friction there as well, and because we can't do this alone, and we always need to find, good partners, from the industry that can help us. But it certainly, creates, a bit of a challenge there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I also loved what you said about IT projects, that if you assumed on defined scope and time and budget, that if you are not on pulse of how the target is changing, you can end up delivering on scope, on time, on budget, and fail.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And that is, I think, very, very, very important thing to call out, that there is a drawback of approaching a large transformational project in a rigid fashion. What you're saying actually is I think, very, very, very good. I wanted the question from the audience came about talent, and how are you approaching talent? There is this ongoing debate about, do we hire for skills or do we hire for other attributes? I would love to get your reflections on, like, how are you dealing with talent? How do you deal with this demand to hire people who bring skills versus people who bring attributes and, not necessarily hard technology skills, but have other skills that we know are important. But any reflections on that?
Yeah, finding talent, we've talked about that, is really, really difficult. And I think, it's certainly in my mind not just about the hard technical skills anymore. I'm of the opinion that if the candidates that you can find possess the right, competencies, with respect to change agility, and leadership and accountability, those types of competencies, if people have those, meeting the objectives that you need out of the roles, like, that can always come, and you can, I would say, and I don't think it's ever too late for people to become, better leaders or develop those attributes. But I do think it's a bit easier to train people in the technical skills that they need, rather than to develop those other things. And I would also say that just in general, in my experience, and I've experienced this both personally, but also with people that I've worked for, people that have worked for me, well-rounded candidates that have diverse experience, are so much more effective. And so, that's something we're looking for, and don't necessarily shy away from hiring someone who maybe hasn't done the specific job that you're looking to do, but could bring a different, lens to it. And, talking about it's easy, doing it's really hard. And, we're pretty active here at SGI in trying to develop, pipelines for talent, and that's not just in IT, that's kind of across the organization.
Yeah.
And I think that for all organizations today, that's becoming table stakes, and so I always think about what we're going to do from a talent perspective, kind of in three simplistic buckets, right? We need to have short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategies. And for us, it's hard sometimes, to think about investing in the long-term strategies on, the talent that's going to be a decade out, right? Because everyone's busy, everyone's got financial constraints.
Yeah.
but I always say, like, you got to start now, because if it's a long-term strategy, it takes a long time to develop. And you know, so we are actively working with educational institutions in Saskatchewan. Like for us, you know, the other challenge we have is, you know, there aren't necessarily all the skills that we need in the local markets. And you know, we're trying to we're trying to you know, work with the universities and the polytechnic schools to develop, you know, kind of the future leaders. And you know, our hypothesis is that, you know, people that are educated here are more likely to stay here. When we want to work with these people, you know, as they're growing up, as they're going through schooling. We want to make sure that these institutions have the right programs that match our needs and the rest of the industry's needs. You know, we're not just doing this selfishly. Like we believe in a strong tech ecosystem. So that's definitely important to us too.
So Kanaris, I had a bit of a technical glitch here. My computer just kicked me out, but I'm back.
No worries.
I may have lost about 30 seconds of your final comment. So
yeah, no, all good. I was just sharing kind of our approach to, you know, building talent pipelines. You know, I talked a little bit about working with educational institutions. You know, we're also working with you know, organizations that are helping people new to Canada, you know, get into you know, roles that are more technical. You know, and it's interesting. You know, we were recently talking to a fellow that works with newcomers to Canada and tries to help them navigate, you know, the job market. You know, and you know, he shared lots of stories about people he knows that are you know, heavy duty mechanics, or have strong, you know, data or IT skills, but they're working labor jobs, right? And you know, that's an untapped you know, resource that we want to make sure that we're plugged into as well. So
I think that's very, very important. I think I agree. Very, very important. We have untapped potential in the country, and since technology is clearly, I think, demonstratively, this is the future. This is the future. I think we all ought to be thinking about these new, you know, pools of resources. If we are fishing all in a single pond, there isn't enough fish for everybody. We need to think about other ponds to fish into, right? So thank you for bringing that up. And I would call out not only immigrant population that's coming in, which is a great source of potential talent, quite frankly, energy that people who come to this country have to succeed. But we also have, of course, our indigenous communities that are source of opportunities to work with them, to bring them into the tech industry. Academia is great to grow the talent. Also, you know, the people who are retiring from military service, for example, the people retired at a relatively young age, right? So there's an untapped pools of talent that I think we all should be thinking of and expanding as we compete, as we all compete for those who are right for organizations. Thank you for that. Kanaris, I wanted to ask you, as a senior technology executive, obviously very successful, very thoughtful. If you play the movie forward 5 years out, 10 years out, where do you see the potential for technology leaders and technology executives? How do you feel this might play itself out in the next decade?
You know, that's a great question, and I probably don't have, you know, the best answer, but the one thing I'll share with you in terms of what I think about, myself and what I have to do is, I think, technology leaders need to get a whole lot better at understanding, the business, the understanding, and I'm not talking about superficially understanding. I'm talking about really understanding, what it is your company does, how they do it, and without that kind of context, I don't think you can be a real effective
Yeah.
leader and deliver against those outcomes. I mean, I think, without that, you certainly run the risk of doing what I talked about before, right? Executing on a project, and you're all high-fiving yourself at the end of the day, high-fiving each other at the end of the day, and you actually haven't delivered what the
Yeah.
business actually needs. And so, I think as time goes on, I think tech leaders need to become, more and more business savvy. I think you'll see more, well, and I also think, business leaders need to become more tech savvy too,
Yeah,
right? And,
exactly.
I talk to my peers about that. This isn't just about me learning about insurance and me learning about, the workings of, being a registrar here in Saskatchewan. This is about them understanding, where AI is going,
Yeah.
where data and analytics are going, where technology as a whole is headed, and trying to, help paint that picture of like, oh, okay, I see where it's headed. Here's where it might plug into my business and make a material change, and allow us to, deliver better experiences to our partners, to our customers, and do that in a more efficient and effective way. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Actually, it
I
does.
think
So
that's what has to happen for sure.
so to me, how I would sort of translate what I heard is the role is actually moving from the back office through the mid office into the front office. You need to actually, to continue being relevant, you need to understand the actual details of how your business actually works. And I would say that unstated statement here is, if you don't, you risk becoming irrelevant. Like probably 5 years out, 10 years out, automation and technology advancements are going to make like the IT shop should be ticking, and all the value should be creating at the front. So there is this advice: go learn the nuts and bolts of your business. This is the only way you can actually create value for them.
Yeah.
Be the orchestrator of technology, right? And help your peers become better technologists themselves. But be an orchestrator, be an evangelist, be an educator. That seems to be, that's how I sort of understood.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well put. And then I think together, then you can all innovate, right? As a team. This isn't just, people sometimes, I believe people think about innovation in way too much of a technical, through a technical lens. And I think innovation has to happen in a real collaborative approach, hand in hand with the business, both understanding, each other's sides, and I, it's hard. Like, so, I think, some days I'm, up to here in work and problems, and it takes a little bit for me to kick myself in the butt and say, okay, well, now I got to crack open my insurance book and do some training. But and I'm sure the same goes for them.
Yeah.
All of my peers, but I can't understate, how strongly I believe in that.
And I think that what you're describing also, I know that many IT leaders aspire to strike this balance when they're seen as a true sort of strategic partner to the business that they serve. And what you're describing is exactly sort of the way to get to that point, where IT is no longer seen as a subservient provider of services, an order taker, nor is IT seen as an arrogant know-it-all, but there's this fine balance that is achieved where the actual collaboration starts flowing, where the respect is mutual, where everybody has something to contribute that ultimately leads to better innovation as well. So this was fantastic. Kanaris, this was a wonderful conversation. We are at time. We parked 45 minutes for this. I really want to thank you. There was a lot of gold nuggets in this conversation. So I want to thank you very much for your time and for your wisdom. For our audience members, we have recorded this session, so I'm going to be sending the link back to you. Please feel free to, of course, share it with your friends. Kanaris, again, thank you so very much. I would like to wish you a happy Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dalibor. And you know, I was happy to share some of my thoughts, and you know, happy to share or continue this conversation with anyone. If you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you for that invitation. I believe it's really fundamentally important for all Canadian technology leaders to find a way to connect and work with each other. The job is becoming very, very complex, already is. It's the velocity of change is fast. We all need friends around us. So I encourage everybody to sort of stay connected and reach out for help. As far as our next show, ladies and gentlemen, on 22nd of May, I'll be welcoming David Markwell, who is the Chief Information and Chief Analytics Officer with Loblaws Group of Companies. That should be really insightful and interesting conversation. So I hope you will join us then. And I wish you all also happy Wednesday. Until next time, bye-bye.